speaking of the most valuable, we've got our guy Brian Baldinger joining us right now. Baldy, how's it going?
Things are going good, guys. Real good. I got a couple details I'm working on here on this trip down to Brazil for this game down in São Paulo next week. So, it's been it's a fun process right now.
Oh, that is incredible. We're, 8 days away from the NFL start, 9 days from that Brazil game. I can't wait. And a big reason Broncos country can't wait is Bo Nix. And Baldy, we were looking at expectations for Bo Nix for his rookie season. From a national perspective, how crazy is it to say Bo Nix could have a CJ Stroud type of rookie season?
It's not crazy. I mean, nobody was talking about the Houston Texans at this time last year. Nobody knew who Nico Collins was. Nobody knew that Tank Dell could, be the ultimate slot little toy that it became, or that Dalton Schultz would impact. Like, nobody really knew. Nobody knew Devin Singletary would have the year that he had. So all that is possible. I think the thing that would be encouraging that might lead people to think like that without really knowing what the future holds is just the relationship with him and Sean, and just how it looked in that last preseason game, how it kind of grew throughout the preseason to the point where he's a starter now. You feel a little bit more confident and comfortable that that could happen, and the guys around him could play at a higher level because of his accuracy, his ability to see the field.
You mentioned some of the weapons that CJ Stroud had last year to have the year that he had. I was going to ask you, as you look at the Broncos roster now and the 53 that they came down to, do you think that Bo Nix has the firepower similar to CJ Stroud to have a year like that?
Well, I mean, you start at the running back position with Javonte and Jaleel, and the rookie from Notre Dame, Estime. Like, okay, that seems pretty good to me. And then if you look at, the receivers right now, they kept two rookies, of course, Troy Franklin and Devon. And then, you look at what they have, and I don't think anybody knows what Miles can be yet. But you have to kind of consider what they can do at that position right now. I mean, Courtland Sutton has always, in my mind, been a number one wide receiver just because of what kind of guy he is and his length and, his ability to go win contest type footballs. But I think the receivers right now, I wouldn't say that they were any different than what we saw in Houston a year ago, and some of the guys that exploded with CJ Stroud getting them the ball.
And speaking of receivers, Baldy, probably the biggest surprise and biggest storyline with the Broncos building their 53 roster yesterday was the team moving on from Tim Patrick. Do you think, was that a surprise to you? And how much will that hurt the team or won't hurt the team this year?
I was surprised. I really was. For them to keep what they did in that situation right there kind of caught me off guard, especially after what Tim just did coming back from the injury. But for them, really to keep Josh Reynolds over Tim Patrick, I was a little surprised. I'm not knocking Josh Reynolds. I mean, he's been around the league with the Rams and Detroit, but I thought Tim Patrick was a better option personally, but obviously Sean sees him every single day. Marvin Mims, we got to see, but I think, Mims is going to be the returner, presumably, punt returner, kickoff returner, in addition to, a guy that showed promise last year. But I was surprised that Josh Reynolds, I know he was a free agent pickup, but after what Tim Patrick did to come back from that surgery, what he had done in the past, what he did in the preseason, I thought he was a lock to make the team.
Yeah, I thought Tim was going to be a member of the team too. I want to move on to the offensive line. I know that you know a lot about the offensive line, and specifically, we kind of knew who 4 out of the 5 starters were, but the center position was up for grabs. Were you surprised the way it shook out, or did you kind of have a feeling that it would work out the way that it did?
Well, when Wattenberg started that last game with Bo Nix, I mean, usually you put the starting center with the quarterback. I mean, even if you go out to pregame warmups and everything, who's the quarterback taking the snaps from? It seemed like they. Not that they wanted Wattenberg to win the job, but it seemed like it was his job to lose. And so he's the starting center. We got to see. Maybe Forsythe can be that guy. I don't know. But you're going to find out in the first month whether he can hold down that job or not.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you, Baldy. Yesterday, we talked to George Payton after the Broncos built their 53-man roster. And one of the things that he said was Zach Wilson will be a starter in this league someday. Do you think that's going to be the case?
Well, I know, look, it's easy to see the arm talent that Zach has. That's not going to change. He's still very young. He still plays far too frenetic. I mean, he did with the Jets. He did in preseason for me. Now, can Sean Payton kind of hone the skills? All right, because I think part of the reason why he is so frenetic and he does take off so much and just plays scattered, is I don't know that he really knows what he's looking at. Now, I could be like way off in left field. I would say George and Sean would know far better than me, but I saw it firsthand in New York a lot. I know every Jet fan did too. Like that, if they somehow reel him in, and I don't know how you become a starter, because he's not ready to be a starter right now in my mind. Maybe the injuries, if there was injuries to that position this year, he could be. But I don't know how you change the way that you play, see the field better without playing. So George could say he's going to be a starter in this league. Well, how is he going to get there? What's the process? Because I don't think he can sit and watch Bo Nix play this year and end up becoming somebody's going to go, oh, he's the starting quarterback.
Right.
I want to know what I want to know what George Payton thinks his process is to become a starter, and who's going to give him that opportunity to go challenge for a spot somewhere.
So let's talk about the defense a little bit. I know that we talked about early on in the year there were a couple battles, corner position with Riley Moss, and then also an inside linebacker position with Jonas Griffith and Cody Barton. It seemed like Cody Barton ended up winning the job, and they released Jonas Griffith. How did you feel like their play was, and who did you feel like had the upper hand in that battle?
I couldn't really say that one was. I think Cody Barton has a lot more experience, been around this league a lot longer, played a lot more football. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. You kind of obviously look at that off the ball inside linebacker spot as a tandem of guys. I mean, they're run fits and how they're kind of playing off each other. So Alex doesn't really come off the field. So I think how whoever would play better with Alex, and maybe they just thought Cody was. But I couldn't tell you by just watching preseason game films that one guy was head and shoulders above the other.
Totally, Baldy. And I want to take a big picture look here. What's the X factor? Who's the X factor for the Broncos this season?
Well, I would say, without being so obvious, I mean, the X factor, I think, really is Sean Payton. Like, I think he's got his guy. He's never had to develop a quarterback before. They drafted quarterbacks in New Orleans, 4 of them during his time. None of them ever became anything. But they were never picked to ever challenge Drew Brees or anything else. Maybe if he got his hands on Mahomes the way he wanted to, maybe, you would be winning championships right now in Denver instead of Kansas City. But I think Sean Payton's the X factor. Like, that's what you're paying him to be. Yeah. He's got his quarterback in there, how he programs Bo, how he builds these play charts and what he's going to do best and how he's going to put him in a position to succeed. Like, I feel like this is Sean having to be at his very best this year with this young protege. I feel like that's the X factor right now. I can't really say any one particular player is, but I feel like, okay, now Sean's got his guy. I mean, he had inherited quarterbacks here. They went through the draft process. They went through the offseason, preseason. Now he's got his guy for the first time in his coaching career. Let's see how he builds these game plans right now.
Yeah, I agree that Sean is the X factor, and it's really, I think his expertise comes into play because he allows guys to do what they do best. And I think you saw it in the preseason, allowing Bo Nix to have a little bit more RPO and check downs and not try to drive the ball downfield. Do you feel like that deep ball threat will come into play at some point during the year, or do you think it's more vanilla for Bo right now as he gets his feet wet?
Oh, I think they're going to have their deep shots built in, off play action. I mean, they're going to take their shots. That's Sean's job is to find. I mean, everybody has them, but the idea is to, when to call them, how to execute them best, all that kind of stuff. I was in the studio with Gerald McCoy last week when Bo Nix was playing, And, he was in Tampa when Sean was in New Orleans for most of his career. And he was just saying from a defensive standpoint how difficult it was to prepare for Sean Payton's offense. Only because the ball was he was he was a great defensive player. But he knew the ball was coming out in 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. And he was rarely ever going to get a chance to get really Drew Brees on the ground. And I feel like that's part of the magic is, okay, like they had a 2-man game, with Kamara and Michael Thomas that literally, and maybe you're going to see something like that with Javonte and Cortland, who knows, but, or maybe it's Jaleel, whoever, but like sometimes he'll just wear you out with some things that are so simple, but so difficult to defend. And as a defensive lineman, so difficult to really impact the quarterback. I feel like Sean's going to figure some of that out with the personnel that he has right now.
I love that, Baldy. Final football one for you here. What's a successful season for the Broncos this year on the eve of the year starting?
Well, look, Kansas City has won the division 8 years in a row. Outside of the Patriots in the AFC East, nobody's dominated a division like this. So I don't think the division is up for grabs. Still think it's Kansas City's division. But I think fighting for second place is a winning season. I think winning 9 games is a winning season, especially with the rookie quarterback. Think about it. What did Houston win last year? Was it 9 or 10 games? But it took Jacksonville to lose 6 out of the last 7 and collapse for them to win the division. So, and we're all raving about CJ Stroud, as we should. But, if they win 9 games this year and they finish second in the AFC West, I think that's it. I think on all accounts, especially with the draft capital that they don't have, the money that they don't have, especially under the, how they've been curtailed by what they can do, that would be a winning season in my mind.
I totally agree with you. Baldy, we love having you on. Do I see some Baldy's merch on you right now?
Absolutely. We're seeing hoodies, we're seeing hats, we're seeing coffee mugs. Like it's all Baldy's breakdowns all the time right now.
Oh, man, that means it's football season. I love it, Baldy. Thanks for joining us. When do you take off for Brazil?
I'm leaving next Tuesday.
Oh, man.
Next Tuesday, in the Rio Wednesday morning. Going to spend a day playing around Rio, then heading down. Got to do a pregame show for the NFL Network on the field down there. Do some things with some of the fans. It's going to be a rowdy World Cup atmosphere, man. I can't wait.
Oh, man, that's going to be awesome. Maybe we'll be able to catch up with you down there. Safe travels regardless, and enjoy the first few NFL games. We'll talk to you soon, Baldy.
Okay, you guys, Zach. Take care.